chanh. In Vietnamese, chanh can either refer to a lime or a lemon. In Vietnam, it's more often a lime, as limes are more common, but the house I'm staying in has a Meyer lemon tree, so I'm using these to make a lemonade, based off of Chef John of Food Wish's State Fair lemonade recipe. I never fit in growing up, and I don't mean it in the way that a lot of diasporic kids mean it, being alone in a sea of white faces. That simply wasn't true for me. I grew up in one of the largest Vietnamese diasporic communities in Orange County, California, after all. By the time I'd gotten to middle school, I'd had a consistent Vietnamese-American cohort that I hung out with regularly at lunchtimes. Being Vietnamese-American wasn't something I really noticed, per se. It was just something I was. Something unchangeable and unnoticed because everyone else was too. Or at least had friends that were Vietnamese-American. But I did notice that compared to my peers, my Vietnamese sucked. A lot. Though it was my first language, I've always found it difficult to parse out Vietnamese. In university, I was required to take 2 years of a language for my major. I chose Vietnamese, figuring I was more likely to use the language with my family than Spanish, which I'd taken 4 years of mediocrity in high school already. My family laughed at me, saying that I could just learn it by interacting with them instead of wasting thousands of dollars for the courses. But I don't regret that choice. I learned a lot about the culture and the language from my Thai. For instance, I learned about classifiers. Vietnamese loves its classifiers. We classify every object. In English, with the phrase bar of soap, the bar is the classifier. Vietnamese takes classification to an extreme. Round objects are generally chai if you're speaking in the southern dialect. Stick-like objects are gay. Trái cây is fruit. A lime or lemon, because it's a fruit, would be trái chanh. In Vietnamese, you have to make quick assumptions and judgment calls by classifying objects through perceived similarities. Or at least, that's the way it seemed to me. Maybe that's not really the case for those who natively speak, but for someone who lost the language and is still in the process of awkwardly and slowly trying to regain it, it's always been a struggle. Which classifier do I use for what? What's the relationship between these objects? And it's not just objects either, but people too. In Vietnamese, you always refer to yourself in relation to others through the language itself. Vietnamese doesn't have pronouns in the same sense English does. Respect is almost inherent in the language itself through a hierarchical system. I won't get into the details right now because it's a lot. But not only do you have to make snap judgment calls about a person's gender, but also their age, and sometimes whether your dad is older than their dad. Even the idea of the word me in Vietnamese, tôi, doesn't really mean me, but is, historically, the equivalent of saying something on the lines of, your ever humble servant. When you're a child, you refer to yourself as con to adults, because everyone is older than you, except for when you're talking to siblings or cousins. When you're the youngest sibling, you're always am. As the youngest sibling, I was almost always either am or con when I use Vietnamese. They're neutral terms, used by everyone at a specific age to an older audience, a way to humble yourself to your elders. When you're talking to someone younger than yourself, you're either an if you're male or date if you're female. And for someone like me, that was troubling. I never liked gender roles. On my mom's side, I'm the youngest cousin of 4 boys, and the one that was seen as the girl growing up. I hated it. I resented gender norms. Being a girl never felt right to me, but neither did being a boy. So I kind of was in this awkward state of choosing neither, hating both. In English, there's a term for this. Non-binary. I didn't learn about it until later in my life, but it fit right in with my understanding of gender. Namely, that I wanted nothing to do with it. But how did that fit in with my identity as someone who is Vietnamese American? How do I express myself when Vietnamese still feels awkward on my tongue? I'm still Vietnamese American even if I don't speak the language as well as I think I should. Most of the time, I don't use the language at all. I found Vietnamese confusing, difficult. When your language is more gendered, what do you do? Fortunately, Vietnamese isn't gendered the same way Spanish is, but it feels wrong to have to make a judgment call about a person. And when that person is you, and you're unsure about your gender, and you feel awkward about using both date and an, what do you do? Especially when that concept of non-binary doesn't seem to exist in Vietnamese. At least, not that I'm aware of. But how would I even know how to ask? It's not even that familiar for English speakers. Apparently, I wasn't alone in this struggle. Through the wonders of the internet, I discovered that some Vietnamese folk, likely from the diaspora, have combined J and An together to form Chan to indicate non-binary. Lemons, or limes. Both. While I identify as non-binary, I'm not sure I'll use Jan as a pronoun, just as I'm unsure of whether I want to use they/them. But, when life gives you Jan, happy Pride Month to those who celebrate it. If you like this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you next upload.